I used to be an actor. But then I realized that where else do these skills and this eagerness to communicate and my creativity, where can I put it?
We're always looking for answers. And when you start to ask questions, you allow for multiple possibilities to be available.
But if you don't go and sit on the bike and start pedaling, you're never going to know how it feels. If you don't go and try it, it's just ideas and ideas and ideas. You're never going to find out if you like it or not, if you're good or not.
So a lot of people, relationship equals no freedom. Yeah. That's the definition of relationship. Like what you're giving up for the other person or to be in relationship is your freedoms.
Bienvenidos a un episodio más de Segundo Acto. Hoy estamos súper felices porque tenemos una invitada mega especial. Ahorita les contamos de quién se trata. ¿Cómo estás, manito?
Estoy muy bien, estoy muy emocionado de estar aquí otra vez en este pequeño estudio, platicando de cosas que nos gustan, que nos interesan, que nos hacen, yo creo que nos hacen crecer, que nos pueden convertir en mejores personas y ojalá que a ustedes también.
Y obviamente, pues las estamos escuchando, todo lo que nos dicen en redes sociales, en Spotify, todos sus comentarios. Y algo de lo que nos han comentado mucho es que les gustan los episodios donde hablamos de temas espirituales. Entonces, atendiendo a eso y también a nuestras propias curiosidades e inquietudes, es que tenemos una invitada espectacular. Ella es facilitadora de Access Consciousness y es parte de toda esta organización. Es una gran facilitadora. Es experta en muchos temas de dinero, de relaciones, de negocios. Y el día de hoy vamos a platicar de eso, de conciencia y de cómo tener una mejor vida. Ya saben que nosotros siempre estamos buscando compartir hacks, herramientas, teorías, cosas que nos puedan servir, herramientas para que en el día a día puedas utilizar. Y esto es lo que más nos gusta de lo que nos va a compartir el día de hoy, ¿no?
Sí, y sobre todo este tema de relaciones nos interesa mucho, y creo que a todos, porque la vida de eso se trata, ¿no? De tus relaciones, no nada más románticas o amorosas, sino las relaciones que tienes dentro de la familia, las relaciones de trabajo o con amigos, cómo llevarlas de una mejor manera, cómo en el caso familiar quizá poder como separar a la familia de la vida, ¿cómo decirlo?, de lo personal, cómo potenciar tu vida de pareja, no sé. O sea, las relaciones son un tema tan complicado, pero tan interesante y tan importante.
So, without further ado, our guest for today is Sarah Grandinetti. Bienvenida. Hello.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited.
We're so excited to have you here. Things aligned and we're here. All of a sudden, you're here. Yeah. So we're really happy to have you.
It's not a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence. And first of all, we were talking about this, that our podcast focuses on people who are over 35, sort of navigating midlife, and you were telling us something really cool about yourself, because you started this road of consciousness and energy and all that stuff later in life. And how did it happen for you? You were cool, chilling in LA with a salon and worrying about hair and makeup and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden something clicked.
Yeah, I probably have to take you back a little bit further, because my older brother is the co-creator of a company called Access Consciousness. And in the year 2000, I was 21, I was a brand new mom, and he found this thing called the Access Bars. And he invited me to Santa Barbara, which is 2 hours from where I live, to get my bars run. And so that was the first invitation. But it took me 15 years. What's so cool to look at with anything when you're kind of coming into that age after 30 and like, what is my life? And you start asking different questions than you asked when you were in your 20s. That started to kind of erupt in my world. And so I think the seed was planted then, and I started to water it 15 years later. Okay. So many experiences that any of your listeners are having, if you start to ask questions about like, hey, what do I actually know about this and what would I like to choose? It starts to change like the landscape of your life. So to what you were pointing at was that basically COVID COVID was like this perfect storm for me. I owned a hair salon
The catalyst.
Yeah. Because a lot of people in the world went into question.
It was a horrible thing, but also a very like, how do you say it? Like, well, a good thing, but I want to say nutritivo. How do you say that?
It was nurturing.
It was nurturing, exactly. Like, it, you know?
It gave so many people a reset. And what I would actually highlight is it put a lot of people into question.
Yeah.
Because so many of us like target, like, this is where I'm going to go. And then you like kind of put the blinders on, you know, like a racehorse, and you just go there as fast as you can. And you never stop off and go, hey, is this actually working?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, you come home every day and you're not totally lit up, but you're like, well, this is the life I chose.
And that tends to happen more in after 35, 40, that you start to question yourself and your environment. And is this a job for me? Is this the family or the life that I envision? Is this all I can be? Is this all the money I can have? And stuff like that, right?
You know what's so cool, Ellen, that what you just showed me is this thing where, what if what you're doing right now, if you looked at what you love about it, but if you've concluded that that's the only lane that those things exist in, then you keep yourself limited, right? So with my experience, I love talking to people. I've always been a people person. I love having people feel beautiful. And I really, really enjoyed hearing people and like extrapolating. I always say like a hairstylist is a glorified type of bartender where you get to like, you know, hear everybody's problems.
Yes.
I love that part of my job. And owning a salon and the camaraderie of like having a team, I loved all those things. But when COVID came and I went into question, I was like, well, what if those are giving me clues? If they're clues and not conclusions, then I can start to like kind of throw them out in the world and go, where else does this exist? And access consciousness was already in my life. And I was like, what if this was kind of my training ground? What if being a hairstylist was training me for what my future actually was?
That's nice. And it resonates with me because we were talking to my boss, to Marta de Baile, earlier on the radio, that I was saying that I used to be an actor. Well,
I'm so surprised.
You're still an actor. Yeah. There's so many things.
An actor and singer and stuff like that. But I still consider myself an actor. But that's what I used to do for a living. But then I realized that where else do these skills and this eagerness to communicate and my creativity, where can I put it? And then I started creating content, and then I loved creating content, and then I worked on publicity and stuff like that. And then I was like, but maybe publicity is not the way to go because I don't feel that good about selling people stuff. Yeah. But then I wanted to create content that made people's lives better. So then I started to create these kinds of things and podcasts and stuff like that. And now I feel that it resonates with me. But it started with a question, of course.
Yeah, and now you look back and all the dots start connecting. It's like, oh, it's so clear. You know, like now I'm conscious.
Yeah.
Now I can see that. And now I can choose and I can just ask more questions and just let them be. No?
Nice. So then you started with Access and started teaching and stuff like that?
Yeah, it was that easy. Well, I got my facilitator's license, but I still had a lot of doubt in my world of like, what do I have to offer? What do I have to say? You know,
like and imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome, yeah. I think a lot of people, you know, what Access invites us to. Let me say this is being in question. And what a lot of people who are at the front of any room, they think they're there because they have the answer. And so it's a very interesting dynamic to be the person at the front of the room, but you're there to offer question, not answers. Okay. So that was one thing that I wanted to like really be congruent with when I facilitated, is that I wasn't delivering an answer. I wasn't delivering conclusions about what I thought someone's life should be. Who am I to them? I'm just here to empower you to know what you know and invite you to ask more questions so that you have the fullest life. So so I started on that journey. And as soon as I started, I kind of got over myself, right? Got out of my own way. I realized like, this is exactly what I'm meant to be doing.
Nice. I love that story. And it's very common for people our age and stuff to start asking those questions and then to come to find stuff about you that you'd never thought about, that you're very good at. The other day I was saying like, I didn't know I was good at sales. Yeah. And I'm very good at it. So I'm like, that's another place where my talent can shine and stuff like that. So you're working on a project right now, and you're about to release a new book, and we have that
like that exclusive
information. Yeah. So what's that book about?
Right now, it's called Finding Your Midlife Magic, and it's inviting people basically over 30, and it's really just walking through those things that show up for us when we go into different questions, like the COVID theory, like we all started to question things a little bit more and get out of our conclusions and go, wait a minute, when I push reset, like forced into reset really, and push a pause, what now is possible? What else can I choose? And kind of looking at, in the book, we look from everything like questions you can ask, tools you can use. We even go through like choosing sides over inner beauty or outer beauty, like for women, because we think at some point we stop being beautiful because we're aging. And so it's like too Botox or not too Botox. That is literally a chapter in the book. Okay. Because it's all just a choice. And it's like inviting people to get out of their way, get out of judgment, and ask different questions that empower them.
And how do you make a choice? Like when you start having all these questions, like finding maybe a new identity or trying to find what else can you do or what else is possible, how do you start? How do you choose something and start doing something different? Where do you get the courage to do that?
That is an awesome question. And I think you already answered it earlier. So I'm going to pull out what you said earlier was that basically you start to ask questions and we're taught to find answers. So we're so entrained to school, right? Like get the right answer and then you get the good grade. And so we're always looking for answers. And when you start to ask questions, you allow for multiple possibilities to be available. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it's like, I always ask, like, what enthuses me? It's like, what has me curious? Like even you saying, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? I'm like, that lit me up. Yes. Like, let's make this work. And we totally did. Right. So it's like learning those energetic cues and clues that you've been taught when you were looking for the answer to ignore. So you start to ask questions and then you choose. And the thing is, if there's no wrong choice, every choice you make will create a new awareness. So, like a lot of people will say like, I don't like sushi. And I'm like, but do you not like sushi? Once you try it, because you ask them, have you ever tried it? No. I just don't eat raw fish. Well, that's kind of a conclusion, friend. Yeah. What if you tried it and see if you like it? And once you bite into it, you'll know because you chose.
True.
And
True.
There are no wrong choices. I love that.
Yeah.
And also there's this thing going on here in Mexico because of a reality TV show that people have been talking about, this tool that's called Interesante Punto de Vista or interesting point of view. And it's everybody's saying it and all that. But what does that mean? What's the origin of that tool?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So interesting point of view is getting us to the place where we know that every point of view we've ever taken is just interesting, okay? You growing up here in Mexico with the family that you did, in the area that you did, the gender that you are, all of that, you take a different point of view from the world than I did growing up in Southern California as a woman, So when we get that, it's really stepping out of the idea that there's right and wrong, which I know is going to make some listeners' heads explode because how else will we have moral code? I get it.
Yeah.
Just hold on a second. But what's right to you might not be right for me, So it's like taking a bird's eye view and looking from a different place and go, okay, that's just interesting. I don't have to react to it. I don't have to make that person wrong. Your experience is so different than mine. So my interesting point of view of this thing that we might be looking at is going to come different than yours. And we just have to acknowledge the difference rather than trying to put everything into a right, wrong, good, and bad, because judgment of any kind is what locks it up. You can't change something if you're fighting for something or defending something, right? And so in that fight, like, you can look, dare I say this, you can look at politics, right? Like people just label themselves as something with a certain party and then we'll fight to the death but never take in new information because they're right. And rightness locks us up. But if it's just interesting, interesting that I'm with this political party, what other information could I receive about other possibilities? It starts to generate question and more of like a communion with others because we don't have to be at odds just because we have different points of view.
Absolutely.
Like and there's a tool that you talk about in your new book that's called shifting from why to what. And what is that?
Well, that chapter is all about getting out of the victimhood. So much of our lives, we think things happen to us. And guys, I would have fought anybody who told me that I wasn't a victim growing up. Like I had family drama, divorced parents, dad's cheating on mom, like monetary abuse, right? And so when I'm being the victim to that circumstance, my choices are so limited in order to maintain victim. Okay.
Yeah, you have to not be in control.
You cannot be in control. You can't be powerful because then you're not a victim anymore, right? So why to what is really about it, all the places you're going, why did this happen to me? Why did I end up here? Why did my husband divorce me? Why do, I not have the dream job? Why? That's constantly putting us in victim mode. Mm-hmm. When we change why to what, we go, okay, what gift is this? What is here that I'm not acknowledging? What is possible that I've never considered?
And you don't have to get the answer right away, right?
No, there's no answers. It's like, it's the energy. And the thing is, and it can be like the readout of what is the gift in this? And you go, oh my gosh, I'm so much more empowered and aware to abuse. If I was abused, wow, what gift can I be to other people through my experience? Wow, if I didn't buy into victim, well, how can I empower and inspire others to not have to buy it either?
Yeah. But first you have to be conscious about that, because if you're unconscious, you just can't see that you're being a victim. So how do you get that consciousness?
For me, it was just about being willing to ask a question and not seek an answer. There are so many tools. We mentioned access consciousness, the access bars, and that clears like all of the weird thoughts in your head that gives you the space for that. But you got to reprogram where you're aligning with the things that aren't creating for you. Mm-hmm. If you're doing something every day that is like hurting your body, but you still want to choose that, but you want this change. I always remind people, if you desire something different, you have to choose something different.
Of course.
And so instead of trying to look for the right thing or the right choice, we start to go, hey, what question can I ask here that'll give me more awareness to what is possible? And then those things, like the synergy energetically, when we all sat down, it was just like, hey, we've known each other forever. Yeah. And oh my gosh, we're like really aligned with like what this show and this book, oh my God, let's go. Right.
Yeah.
And that was all the energies. And we didn't have to think about it. We didn't go,
Yeah, but I think because the three of us are like you said, aligned or vibing in something similar. What happens in relationships when your mom, your dad, your partner, whatever, is not vibing there? How do you handle that? How do you invite them to ask questions, to be more conscious, or to change something,
That's a really great question. So one of the things I share in classes a lot is a lot of people get the manual for the classes that we do, and then they like roll it up and they go home and they beat everybody over the head with it. And
that tends to happen with everyone.
Right?
Hola, mi amor.
Why aren't you asking a question? Bing, bang, boom, And so then people put up their defenses because who wants to be attacked? And no one likes to be told they're wrong.
Yeah.
So basically when you're like, hey, I'm vibing on this and, my family isn't, they're not loving this right now. Okay, cool. What if you ask to be more allowance for whatever they're choosing and don't judge them? Because anytime you judge something, you lock it up and then people have to defend or fight for their point of view. Even if it's not the point of view that actually creates for them, it's the point of view that's against yours being wrong. And that's the way polarity works. It's like you can't have right without wrong and you can't have good without bad.
Oh, that's true.
And we were talking about that earlier because I was kind of telling Vince about this concept of either you're receiving or refusing. But then it sparked a question because then I told him, like, suppose you're with your mom and she's throwing a tantrum or whatever. You receive it. That's the energy. You're able to receive it. You don't buy that point of view, but you receive it. And then you asked, but do you align with that? Then do you clear things up? How do you handle that?
Oh, you guys, I love your questions so much. Big kisses on your cheeks. Okay. So one of the things that I like to invite people to is, especially with family, we've been a character in the screenplay your whole life. So you are someone's son, you are someone's older brother, younger brother, you are, there's relational things that create your character. So if you remember, like, when they used to write scripts as an actor, there's first like a what do they call those? Like a description of the character.
Yeah, your biography, your description
or description of the character.
Yeah. Right? Well, guys, that started to get created before you were even born. Mom and dad were already like, I hope he's this when he grows up. True. I wonder who he's going to look like. I wonder if he's going to
have a boy, he's going to be a football player.
Yeah. And so they start to build your character.
Oigan, ya sabemos que está muy buena la plática, pero hay algo que nosotros tenemos que contarles.
Tenemos un hack buenísimo, ya ven que nos encanta compartir este tipo de cosas. Descubrimos Gelan Plus, que es un gran shot que te puede estar acompañando en esta segunda etapa de la vida.
Sí, obvio. Si tienes gastritis, reflujos y de repente ya, pues ya en los 40, que ya el estómago no es lo mismo que antes, pues te echas tu Gelan Plus. Y la neta es que esta presentación está súper buena. Son 4 shotcitos que puedes traer en la mochila, en una cangurera,
te lo llevas al concierto, te lo llevas de viaje, sientes alguna molestia estomacal, ardor, gastritis, reflujo, te das un traguito y a los 10 minutos estás del otro lado y de vuelta a la vida.
Sabor a caramelo. También hay una presentación como más grande para tener ahí en tu buró, en el refri, en la casa. Y la neta es que pues es de las cosas que a nosotros nos gusta compartir, como cosas que nos van salvando la vida. Yo ya lo incorporé a mi vida, ya lo estoy usando siempre.
Yo también.
Lo llevamos el
de
otro
mi
día
casa, siempre.
a un concierto, ¿no?
Sí,
Fuimos
justo.
a un concierto y lo llevamos juntos. Y pues bueno, la verdad está recomendadísimo. Gelan Plus.
You come out and now you have to relate to the family, the culture, the geography, all of the influence, and you start to align and know exactly how to behave, and you know what to say when mom's is getting upset, you know how to like run away when dad's gonna yell, all of these interactions, okay? And what happens when you start being in question and mom's gonna have a tantrum? For me, you step off stage of that play, you sit in the front row, and you watch the play go out. Like go on. So the play's unfolding. And what's so funny is you'll see mom upset. And then you'll know the next scene. Dad walks in the room. He reacts to mom. Mom gets even more angry. Dad storms out. Like you will know when you're not in it with a role or a line or reaction that you're supposed to have as the character that you think is you. It all of a sudden becomes entertainment. Okay. And
Wow.
and you're not as emotionally invested in getting your lines right. Okay, because you will see, this is usually like you're at family dinner. Oh, mom's going to bring up the thing, and dad's going to react, and then sister's going to have a point of view, and you know what I mean? And you know everybody's roles. But when you step out of your role and you start being you have way more awareness to go, hey, does this line that I'm about to deliver, that I've always delivered, will it create greater? Mm. And what choice do I have? What choice do I have with mom reacting right now? And sometimes, like I know with my own mom, like she flips out on something and I just go, oh, and I'm in the front row of the play of my family reality, like eating my popcorn. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I go, hey, mom, do you need a hug? Something I never would have said before.
Wow.
Okay. And then question is an algorithm interrupt. Okay. So
repeat that?
A question in and of itself is an algorithm interrupt. Okay. So even with my kids, they'll be like freaking out because they can't find, their gym bag or something, right? And I'll be like, hey, what's your favorite color? And they'll be like, what? Okay. And the purple, mom, okay, where's your gym bag? Oh, I left it in the car. Because they're on the path of like a upset or whatever, and that's all they can focus on. And when you focus on that, you limit your awareness. You got to expand it. My husband's been coming at me upset sometimes, and I'm like, hey, what's your favorite dessert? I mean, I have funny little questions, right? And he'll be like, huh? Tiramisu. And I'm like, okay, now what were you saying? And it's the upset's gone.
I love that tool.
I like that.
Also for parents that are listening to this podcast, I think that's a very good tip or hack.
Yeah.
And do you address the issue later with a different approach or just let it be? Or
it's just following the energy. So like when I ask a question of my husband when he's in an upset and it dissipates the energy, then I'll literally be like, okay, what were you talking about? What did you want to say? And then he'll go, oh, I guess I'm not that upset, And then then we move into a constructive conversation that's going to create for both of us. So there's an intensity when there's an upset, and I'm like, hey, let's bring it down where we can both like respect and honor each other and have the conversation. I love having the challenging conversations, but from a place of honoring, like be upset with me. I invite that. Like, what is coming up for you? That is totally. There's no relationship that's not going to have upset. I think that's insane to even think about. It's how you walk through those fires. Having each other's back, being like, hey, I get you're upset. Okay, let's talk about it.
And now that we're more into couples and stuff like that, I was thinking about relationships. Like when you're in a relationship with someone, I was talking to my boyfriend the other day, and I was telling him that for me, I view our relationship as being companions and travel buddies, like we're traveling the world together, but he doesn't own me or I don't own him. and I don't expect him to do something to please me, and I hope he doesn't expect me to do something to please him. But how do you see that energetically?
As far as pleasing each other?
No, as the whole dynamic of the relationship. What do you define a relationship as?
Okay. Well, relationship in and of itself, by definition, is the distance between two things.
Oh.
Okay. Read the definition because it's relating. So we're with the relationship is like if this is you and this is him, it's the measurement between the two. Okay. Now that might blow people's brains, but so in Access we talk about having a creationship and kind of take a spin on the word relationship so that you're not creating distance, that you can actually have the communion that you desire, which it sounds like you guys have. And so, but what I will say to your question, or I think something that sparked is, I think, do you guys remember the movie Jerry Maguire?
Yeah.
Of course.
Do you remember You Complete Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ruined everything for everybody.
Me. Yeah.
Not that they're the first one. I'm pretty sure we can
I
play
like
like
the
Disney.
other line better. You had me.
Yeah.
At hello.
You had me at hello. Yeah, exactly.
That's a better line.
Or show me the money.
Show me the money. That's a better one too. I like that. But that's the thing is the only reason anybody would need to be completed by a relationship is they first bought the lie that they weren't whole. And if you are whole, then relationship becomes a choice, and it becomes almost like how we would treat a hobby, like something that we can like throw ourselves in and have like the greatest time with, and engage and learn more about it, and go on Amazon and search a bunch of things that'll contribute to it, like you would for a hobby, and have it be a contribution to your life, but not define your life or determine your life and your choices. So like we talk about, a relationship should be something that makes your life minimum of 20% greater. But a lot of people are looking for 100 or 80, like I'll be over here creating 80% of my life, but if I have this person, I'm 100, And it's like, hey, what if you're 100 and they grow it, and having them in your life actually expands it.
I like that.
That's beautiful. And powerful.
Yay.
And of course, in relationships, you have different points of view about stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I think we've been set culturally to believe that we must adhere to some standards or codes or whatever that society has put on us, and even in our culture and more romantic cultures and stuff like that. But how do you navigate freedom in a relationship?
Well, that's a great question. So navigating freedom, if you were to start that question with the acknowledgement that you're always free, the question itself would be different, right? Okay. Yeah. So a lot of people, relationship equals no freedom. Yeah. That's a definition of relationship. Like what you're giving up for the other person or to be in relationship is your freedoms for your body, for your money, for your time, right? So that's relationship definitions is, hey, freedom is the gift I'm going to give you. Okay. If you acknowledge that you're choosing that, and that doesn't have to be a prison, that is a lack of freedom. It's like, what questions can you ask that invites freedom for both of you while honoring? And I don't have the answer for that. That is between each person and their person, right? It's like, hey, what does this look like for you? But I will invite you and your listeners to look at if you were the very first person to ever create a relationship, and you didn't have to measure it by your parents, by society, by anybody who's getting it right on the surface on social media, okay, like whatever. If you were the very first person to create this thing called relationship, how would you create it? And if it doesn't have to look like anybody else, because your friends will tell you, oh, him going out, on the weekends without you, ooh, watch out, or your friends will be like, why is she traveling without you? Don't you? Because they all have their own definitions of what creates relationship. What if it's not true for you? And what if you allowed for that? And more people created from the creationship energy rather than, here are the definitions that we've, handed down generation after generation to create the right relationship, which in judgment, right, wrong, good, bad, there's no freedom.
Oh, that's
this is true. We're going again to the script. We're carrying this script that we've been given since the day we were born. And this is how relationships should work. And there are no rules, and there's not a rule book that you have to follow in order to create your life.
Exactly.
No?
And there's another type of relationship that I really want to talk about, which is a work relationship, because that tends to be different, because there's like a power dynamic, either with someone who works for you, or if you work for someone, or if you work with someone, like at different levels. But that's happened to me before, that I used to think that people that were my bosses or stuff like that were more than me. And then something clicked when a friend of mine told me, like, what if you're the same, as good, or as powerful as them?
Yeah.
Because that gives you more freedom to be in that relationship with them. And also it contributes more to them and to you. And I've been approaching, at least this job that I have right now, with that approach, and it's made such a big difference. But I'm also a boss for some of the people here. So how do you handle those dynamics and still make it work and make it thrive and make space for everyone to thrive and to live a happy and perfect life?
Yeah, I think for me as a business owner, my first target with anybody who comes to work for me is empowerment. Like, so that, to me, that includes them, and it includes their asks for their future, even if my business is just a stop off. So like, what gift can I be, and what kind of leader can I be that empowers them towards their future, whether that's in this business or not in this business? Like, are you showing up because we're having so much fun and you have the freedom to spread your wings, and you're not not looking around for what toes you can and can't step on? Like, I always say to my team, what if there's no toes? What if no one here has toes? Like, spread your wings, fly, don't worry about that. And so from that place of empowerment, like, we all love to be around people who are like you guys, I could be here all day, right? And so that, I'm like, what if you were like that with your staff? What if you lean into who they are? What makes them tick? Because so many things like the idea is it flows upward, right? Like, so, the people on the bottom of the business, are less valuable than the people on the top. And like, as you pointed out, Alan, that's not true. So as the person on the top, what can you be that actually raises the tide, and brings everybody up, so we can all play together from our capacities and our brilliance. And I am so grateful for the people on my team who know so many things that I don't know. Like, and I'm totally willing and excited to be the dumb one, because they get to shine. And then you get excited to show up every day.
Yeah.
Because people are leaning in and they're receiving from you, and they feel empowered to be them.
Yeah, and it's exciting to see someone flourish.
Yes.
Yeah. When you hire people, what do you ask them? Ooh! How do you, choose people?
Yeah. So in my business, I'll talk a little bit about my salon business. It's a little different because my business now is kind of like the teams all over the globe, actually.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Good problem to have.
Yeah, it is. But my salon business, we would always say, we try you out, you try us on. And so basically, it has to be a match energetically. So as a hairstylist or a salon owner, doing great hair, I could teach you that. I used to be a national color educator for a big brand. I traveled around doing that for a while. So that I can teach you. But caring about your client and engaging and caring about the business and having stylists back, because most stylists, a lot of salons are very backstabbing, And so I was more always looking at the energy. So come in. Let me try you out, see how you engage with the team. And then you try us on, make sure we work for you. You're not less than in this. We have to choose this together. And I think a lot of employers are like, hey, I hold the cards for you.
True.
No. We're all choosing here. And then I do like a team. My other hiring thing is I ask my team, I engage them, because you know what, honest people have to desire to play well together, And so you bring someone in that they might be an amazing person, but they don't vibe with the team. I think adding anybody, it's like when I like analogies, so watch this, kids. So when mom is dating, single mom has kids, and she just brings in a new man and doesn't engage them with the children, and they don't vibe, no one gets along, but mom's like, no, I want him here. Well, that should be a communal choice in my interesting point of view. See how I did that? Interesting point of view.
Yeah.
People don't have to agree with me. It's fine. Okay. But in a business, same way. It's like, hey, we're all a family here. We're all a team. And so I want to know, hey, when this person came to try us on, how did you feel around them? Did you feel like you could work with them? Doesn't mean that they're a bad person if we don't choose them. It just means that does it work? And is everybody going to have a supportive work environment?
True.
Oh my God. We can talk about this all day long. Obviously, the three of us. But just to say goodbye, I have a last question. Also in your new book, you talk about fear and walking through fear and all that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So fear is just there to distract you from possibility. Like if we all saw fear for what it actually was, is just this little distractor who's keeping you tapped into everybody's point of view about what you're going to choose and the fear of failure. One question you can start asking is, what would you choose if you knew you wouldn't fail? Okay? Because you're like, oh, I'd go there and I'd go there and I'd do this and I'd jump off that cliff because if I knew I wasn't going to fall flat on my face, I would totally try that, right? And then you get a list of going, wow, there are a lot of things that I'm using fear to stop me. If fear's not real, and it's just a lot of times a misidentification of excitement. So you're actually really excited about the thing. If you ask, is this excitement or is this fear? You can get more clarity because the body responds to fear in the same way it does excitement.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's actually like there's studies out there. I can't quote them right now, but I'll find it for you. Okay.
It's fine.
That like your palms sweat, your face will flush. Like there's a lot of different and fear and excitement. They've done studies that it's very, very similar. Mm-hmm. And so when you kind of identify that, then it's like, okay, what would it look like? Question: what would it look like to live fearlessly? And it's like from fear to fierce. Just change the narrative. What are you focusing on? Whose point of view that this is a scary thing or that you should be afraid are you buying and making yours? And what I know more than anything in the world is that we most always learn more from our failures than our successes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? So when you fall off the bike, you're like, oh, I don't want to do that again. You know what I mean? But when you're just riding smoothly, a lot of times you don't even take the time to acknowledge it. You're looking for the next bump in the road. So it's like, what are we focusing on? And if you focus on the target and what you'd like to have as your life, and you can, we talk about in the book, like you can go, hey, fear, even if it's just there whispering in your ear, I hear you, and I'm going anyways.
I know that you mentioned the bike. No,
he just completed a 1 month bike ride.
Yeah, bikepacking trip.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
but my analogy was like you can read the manual for how to ride a bike, but if you don't go and sit on the bike and start pedaling, you're never gonna know how it feels. How you have to keep balance. It's like you have to start doing it. You have to go and try it. If you don't go and try it, it's just ideas and ideas and ideas of theory and maybe fear, maybe excitement. But if you don't just start with the first step, you're never gonna find out if you like it or not, if you're good or not, if that new narrative is the thing you wanted to do. I don't know. It's like you just have to do it. Just do it.
Yeah. Just start. Start anywhere. To highlight another thing about question, I did this program in my salon for women years ago, and I asked all of them, what would it take how much would it cost to go to Paris? And I had them all throw out numbers, like fly on a plane to Paris. And I had everything from $5,000 to $20,000, like people with huge ranges. And I pulled up my phone and I did a Google search, and there was a ticket round trip for $600 US. And they were like, what? Because we have so many conclusions about what it is to ride a bike that we'll read the manual forever, but we won't start.
Yeah.
And we won't even do a Google search. People want to start businesses, but I'm like, so who else is doing what you want to do? Like, have you learned anything? And they're like, oh, no. And I'm like, do a Google search. Start somewhere,
I love that. And I love that we're ending the episode with that question, like, what would I choose if I didn't have any fear or if fear wasn't a question here? And I love that you presented all these tools that people can try out if they want to try out. Like, it's something that you can get into if you like it, but you don't have to. And that's what we like to give people in this podcast, like stuff and hacks and tools that they can use or incorporate in their lives. And we're really grateful for you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Tell us about your new book, your new classes, everything. What are you doing next?
Yeah. So thank you guys. First of all, thank you. This has been one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. So how does it get better?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Your true curiosity is an amazing gift to receive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's a book tentatively titled "Finding Your Midlife Magic." And that's coming out. I have a parenting book coming out in classes. I'm actually in Colombia next week, and it's live. Not next week. That's a lie. Next month. It's live and online, and it's relationships done different. And I would actually invite you both if you're free that weekend. It's a 3-day class as my guest. If you guys would like to either fly to Colombia or join online, I would love to have you both come and enjoy that. Yeah, you're very welcome. I'd love to have you. And then I have a monthly program called the Potency Project that I just launched. It will be in English and Spanish.
Nice.
And it's 2 calls a month, and we discuss like how to play with your potency because we're so used to suppressing it and calling it anger.
Yeah.
I would just love to invite all your listeners to like, hey, what else is possible here you've never considered?
I love that. Thank you so much. I think you gave us like amazing tools, and this has no value because it's so valuable what you just gave us. So thank you so much.
Thank
it was
you
really
both. You're beautiful.
Gracias,
a pleasure to talk to you.
You.
So, nos vemos en el siguiente episodio de Segundo Acto. Sarah Grandinetti estuvo con nosotros. De verdad, unas herramientas espectaculares. Yo creo que me voy así de que con el corazón.
Yo me voy con preguntas. ¿Qué más es posible, universo? ¿Qué más es posible?
Y pues bueno, muchas gracias y nos vemos en el siguiente Segundo Acto.
Querida familia de Segundo Acto Podcast, queremos pedirles un favor enorme. Si les gusta lo que están escuchando aquí o lo que están viendo, les pedimos que nos sigan en Instagram, en Spotify, en YouTube, en TikTok, en Apple Podcast, que nos dejen reviews, que nos dejen comentarios, que nos ayuden con todo lo que ustedes quieren escuchar y ver para que este podcast pueda seguir creciendo y podamos seguir entregando mejor información, mejores tips, mejores hacks para todos ustedes.